3 months ago, I built two completely different ant civilizations, separated by a deadly river. On one side was a jungle ant colony filled with moist soil, carnivorous plants, and plenty of natural resources. On the other side was a desert colony, a harsh landscape of dry sand, spiny plants, and seeds that were difficult to find. And between them, a dangerous river crawling with predators. But in the middle of that river is an island full of yummy seeds. The only problem, it is almost impossible to reach. Over the next 100 days, these ants will face extreme survival challenges. And on day 100, I will build a bridge between the two worlds. Will the two colonies share their resources, or will this end in total war? Let's find out. To understand how this all started, we need to go back to day 1. I carved a narrow river and filled the tank with soil. To give the ants a massive incentive to explore, I built a secret cache at the very bottom of the tank. A couple of feeder cockroaches and silkworms I picked up from Petco. This protein-rich reward was a test hidden deep beneath the dirt. Would the ants uncover this treasure, or would it decay and be lost forever? With the foundation in place, it was time to bring the jungle to life. I planted an ant plant at the center of the jungle. Ants are naturally drawn to this plant. Inside its swollen base are hollow chambers, almost like tiny rooms built just for them. In nature, ants live inside these spaces, using plants as a fortress, and in return, they protect it from enemies and provide with valuable nutrients. Right next to it, I planted a butterwort. It looked harmless then, but would soon become one of the fiercest hunters in this world. The leaves of this plant are coated in a glistening, sweet-smelling sticky substance. The moment an insect takes a sip, it will get hopelessly trapped, slowly dissolving alive as the plant feeds on its body. Over on the other side of the river, the environment is much harsher. I filled the desert zone with various spiny plants. These spike sentinels offer almost zero moisture or food, meaning any ant will have to navigate a harsh desert full of razor-sharp needles just to search for a single seed. So now the two worlds are ready. It's now time to introduce the rulers of these worlds. Meet the Ant Queen. She mated years ago and stored sperm inside her body. That single event was enough to fertilize eggs and produce an entire colony on her own. I released her with her first generation of workers into her forest. She quickly moved toward the soil and started exploring. A few moments later, she wandered toward the deadly butterwort, getting dangerously close. One wrong step and she could be instantly trapped, ending the experiment before it even begins. Luckily, at the last moment, she turned and moved in another direction. Eventually, she pushed her way into the soil, disappearing beneath the jungle floor. Next, I released the second queen into the sandy desert alongside her own fierce workforce. Within seconds, the ants got to work. They dug a hole and the queen moved underground to raise her new colony. Then came the first storm. Rain fell on this tiny world. The river filled with water as it flowed through the tank, separating the two colonies forever. On the jungle side, new green shoots began to rise. By day 15, the ants had built an intricate nest. Chambers had been carved. And remember those dead insects I placed at the bottom as food? After days of relentless digging, a group of workers finally broke into the buried treasure. The ants swarmed it. Mandibles latched on, legs pulled apart, and pieces began disappearing into the tunnels. On the jungle side, there was not even a sign of the silkworm. It's safe to say the colony had quietly uncovered and consumed the entire reward long before I noticed. These ants have a highly developed sense of smell. They use their antennae to detect chemical cues and subtle smell pheromones, even through layers of soil. On day 17, I added a reward to the desert side, a mini lotus pod filled with seeds ants love. But there was a problem. The seeds were trapped inside a tough shell, and if the ants wanted them, they had to break in. I dropped it into the desert arena, and almost instantly, the ants swarmed it. One ant even pushed its hole back inside, trying to rip a seed loose. But for now, nothing worked. In the meantime, to make the river feel like a complete ecosystem, I needed something living inside it. Something that could turn the water from a simple barrier into a hunting ground. Meet the dragonfly nymph. These aquatic predators hunt anything tiny that gets too close. As soon as I added them, they went straight to the bottom where they could hide and wait. One day, this tiny underwater predator will climb out of the water and transform into a real dragonfly. But for now, it's a silent aquatic hunter. One of the dragonfly nymphs slowly crept toward the edge of the water, knowing this is exactly where ants wander. And sure enough, an ant appeared the same stretch of shoreline. In an instant, the nymph launched forward, snapping its extendable jaw onto the ant and dragging it straight into the water. It's time for him to enjoy his meal. On day 30, I pushed the experiment to a whole new level. I created something neither colony had seen before, an island. And this wasn't just any island. It was loaded with the yummiest seeds. But there was one huge problem. To get there, the ants would have to cross this deadly river. And even if they somehow survive the crossing, they're not done. The base of the island is coated with a slippery chemical. Once they reach the island, they'll have to climb its surface, which is almost impossible to grip. And even if they manage to get to the top, they still have one final challenge. They have to carry the seeds all the way back to the colony. Will the ants risk everything for this massive reward? Or is it simply too dangerous to even try? Let's find out. It didn't take long before one ant made a bold move. It wandered too close to the edge, slipped, and fell straight into the river. Immediately, the current grabbed it. Instead of drowning, it was carried downstream, all the way to the island. By pure chance, the ant reached the base and immediately began climbing toward the seeds. Oh no, it's too slippery. This surface was far more dangerous than it looked. As it climbed, it kept losing its grip and sliding all the way back down. But then, it found a narrow path where its feet could finally hold. This time, it didn't slip. The ant slowly climbed up the seed pod, and finally, it made it to the top right in front of the seeds. But wait, he's not even picking up a single seed. You see, ants don't just find food, they map it. They leave behind a pheromone trail so other ants can follow the exact same path back and forth. So even after everything it just survived, this ant knew it doesn't have a terrain to carry the seeds back. Back on the desert side, something incredible was happening. Other ants had caught the scent, and the colony began forming a living bridge that stretched out over the water. In nature, ants link their bodies to cross gaps and reach places they normally can't. Everything seemed to be working well until, hidden just beneath the surface, a dragonfly nymph approached, waiting for the right moment to strike. In a sudden burst, the nymph shot forward and grabbed 3 ants, dragging them underwater. Or that's what I thought. The ants clamped onto the nymph, biting relentlessly. Even underwater, they didn't let go. And somehow, the hunter had become the hunted. These ants don't mess around. Luckily, the nymph managed to break free and disappear back into the river. With the nymph retreating, the ants rebuilt their bridge. With the bridge in place, the first ants crossed. They reached the island, climbed up, and this time they didn't hesitate. They grabbed the seeds. One by one, they carried the seeds back from the island into their nest. The desert colony now had a massive stockpile of seeds, enough to last for weeks, while the jungle ants were still scraping by day to day. For the first time, the desert colony was winning. But over on the jungle side, something very different was unfolding. A fruit fly was attracted by the butterwort and wandered into it. You see, this plant doesn't trap its prey instantly. Instead, as the fly moves and struggles, the plant responds by releasing more of its sticky coating, slowly grabbing hold of its legs and wings. The more the fly fought, the more it got stuck, until finally it couldn't move at all. A few moments later, the jungle ants picked up the scent of the protein. They rushed in, pulled the trapped fruit fly free, and carried it away like a stolen prize. Turns out, the plant's sticky trap wasn't strong enough to stop the ants. On day 40, I woke up and noticed something strange. Giant black ants were wandering across the terrarium floor. Somehow, they had broken in. They were huge, fast, and they could even climb the glass. In the world of ants, a visitor is never a guest, it's an enemy, and my colony wasn't willing to surrender its home. The ants immediately rushed forward to drive away the intruders. Mandibles locked as both sides pushed, pulled, and fought for control. Warning pheromones spread through the colony and more workers rushed in to defend their home. Eventually, one by one, the black ants began slowing down. My ants were winning, and pretty soon they had won. To prevent any more damage to the colony, I carefully removed any new black ants before the fighting could continue. Soon after, my ants began carrying away the fallen invaders, turning the aftermath of the battle into a fresh source of protein for the colony. After seeing the black ants up close, I realized their mandibles were seriously powerful. These ants were once used like natural stitches. Their jaws clamped onto the wound, and the body was removed, leaving the head to act like a staple. On day 50, I added an armored darkling beetle. These beetles have a strange defense mechanism. When threatened, they stop, lower their head to the ground, and lift their abdomen straight into the air. Then they release a foul-smelling chemical that acts as a powerful irritant, and the ants seem to understand the warning. But this blue death-feigning beetle had two superpowers of its own. First, when threatened, they could play dead. They'll freeze for hours until predators lose interest. And second, they were built like tiny tanks, with armor so tough that even lizards and birds struggle to break through it. On day 60, both colonies were stronger than ever. The only thing still separating them was the river, so it was time to set up the bridge. For the first time, the two worlds were connected. At first, nothing happened, until a few hours later, two brave ants stepped onto the bridge. And then they finally met for the first time. They touched antennae almost like they were exchanging information. They continued along the path into each other's territory. For the first time, they stepped onto each other's land, not as enemies, but as one colony. The ants had chosen peace. Within minutes, ants from both sides were crossing freely. By the end of the day, the two worlds were no longer separate. They had become one massive super colony. Meanwhile, the dragonfly nymph was waiting for its next meal. And remember that seed pod? The ants finally solved it. After days of chewing through its tough shell, they broke in, pulled the seeds free, and carried them back to the colony. By day 70, one of the nymphs had completed its transformation and emerged as a dragonfly. But she wasn't ready to fly yet. Her wings still needed time to harden before I moved her to a bigger world.